research your content. So this has come up as the topmost item in the poll, like biggest challenge for most of you. And when I asked you on email for expectations, most of you said this as the biggest challenge as well. Having heard you, this is what I go through in my talk presentation process. So I start with an idea dump. Initially, once I decide to make a talk, I know the audience, I have an idea of the title, I create an outline. So this is the outline for this talk I'm making now. So I initially, before even doing any research, I just put in whatever I had top of mind. So I started listing the points, what all I want to cover, what is important in public speaking. So the list grew from 6, 7, 8 to 10 as I finished typing. And for each of the points, quickly top of mind, what are the points I want to cover? What examples from my experience I want to bring in? What examples from public domain do I remember? So I started putting in all of this. This becomes your starting point to start the content research. Because now you know which areas are you're weak at, which needs more examples. And this will evolve. There are a few things which will be unknown to you at this stage. After you start researching, the entire outline might change. The way you structure, you might get a better backbone to string the talk around. So all of that will happen, but the initial idea dump is very powerful. Just write down the points, whatever you can remember. And sources for research. Once you have that, where do you go and look at content? These are my sources. I look at market research consulting firms, Gartner, McKinsey, and big publications. Industry influencers, the leaders in each of the space for design, AI, technical experts. For depending on the area, I look at their content, their articles and talks. Past talks. If you have not checked out, do check out on our portal, files/talks. That's a gold mine. A lot of talks are there. I regularly refer to that. A lot of Anand's talks I've used in the past. Our case studies and consolidated deck, another very useful source. So with these two sources, most of your content you will be able to get, but do spend time looking outside. Articles, HBR, and other publications, MIT Tech Review. Quotes, I have a handy list of quotes which I like, and I go and search within that to reuse stuff. And my social activity, one technique which I've been using is apart from my own notes, bookmarks, I use social media as a public bookmark. I share regularly on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever I find interesting, noteworthy, I share. And that way, my the memory of that particular piece of content goes up in my mind. And second, I'm able to search through it and pick up and reuse the content. If everything else fails or you don't get enough, always trust Google. You'll be able to find enough stuff. So an example of social activity and repurposing. So this is something I posted on LinkedIn, early stages of COVID, the puzzling connection between toilet paper and COVID. So I shared the snippet by looking at the Google search trends. And an article I wrote after that, I reused this, talked about how open data is powerful and you can use Google search trends. And in my IABC talk, I talked about, since I had also captured some of these screenshots in April, and this talk I made in June. So April and June, I was able to compare, I was able to reuse. So how the priorities have changed. Earlier, people were interested in making a face mask, making hand sanitizer, and getting the stimulus check money from the government in April. Whereas June, people started searching, when will New Jersey, New York reopen? When will gyms and schools reopen? And the most important of all, when will Disneyland reopen? So this is a way to reuse and repurpose the content. Final point on this section. So adapt your talk based on the audience. One more example, as you pick all the content and you build that flow, I talked about the initial outline, that will change and that should change in many cases. So for IABC talk, the business communicators, this was the title, how AI can make your audience sit up and take notice. So earlier, this was the initial outline I created, the first version of the tech. Know your user, get the data, find insights, build narratives, check and validate and get feedback. So very logical, but this is from my point of view. I want to know the user. I am used to getting data, analysis, building narratives. But for a business communicator who doesn't have a data background, this talk will not land. And I made this kind of mistakes earlier where, yes, the content is right, but the way you're presenting and even the language was not very tailored. So like after my research, I changed this into a second version. I picked 5 points. Understand the audience, generate an idea that people relate to, create the content, build a narrative, stories they relate to, and deliver it right. So these 5 points are the language is that of the end users and the audience, and I still had the same similar content, AI examples, but I was able to get it around these points, and I showed how AI is ready for 3 points, and two of those blank places AI is not ready. So this way your talk can evolve.